The Beef and Barnzy Show, brought to you by bowlersmart.com, trusted by bowlers around the world since 2004. By Lightning Strikes Bowl, home of Bowlers Mart Pro Shop. By Platinum Ford, drive the difference. By Fire Lake Bowling Center, 24 state-of-the-art lanes. By True Grit Coatings, drive on our passion. By Road to Grip, king of them all. By 900 Global, striking worldwide.
Good morning, fellas. How are we doing? And lady, I'm sure there's somebody watching. So, nice to have you here this morning. Chris isn't here. He was getting his other eye fixed. So, fingers crossed that all went well. So, we will... Buenos dias, Marianne. I don't know why we are speaking Spanish this morning, but hello. Nico, nice to see you again. Billy, always good to see you. Clifton, morning. How are we doing? Morning. Adam, hello. Dan, nice to see you. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Good decision, Nico. Thank you for that. That made life a lot easier. Gabriel, the Aggie, nice to see you. Yeah, it probably isn't echoing now, right? I'm just an idiot. Yeah, it was actually hoodie weather this morning. I was clearing out some of my garage, and it was a little chilly. Had to go find a hoodie. Had to actually go upstairs to find a hoodie. So that's how long it's been. So anyway, the reason for the show this morning is because who likes talking about balls more than this guy? So if you've got any questions, fire them in. Super chat, whatever. We're going to have plenty of time to chat today. So if you've got a super chat, we appreciate it. I'll obviously spend more time breaking it down with you. If you got any other sensible questions or you want to ask me about anything, go ahead. It doesn't have to be bowling balls, but we will see. Somebody came in, the 2LS layout system. Storm have shitloads of videos on this. As I don't bowl with two hands and I don't drill balls for a living, I haven't really focused on it at all. So sorry about that one. I've been loving my absolute power recently. Finally shot 800. Nice work. Picked up an Alpha Crux last week. Super excited to drill it. Yeah, the only thing is I temper my expectation because I always feel like those balls that have been around and there were goats back in the day, when you drill them, they tend to be a little disappointing. I'm just how it seems anyway. When is the last time you shot sub 600 in league? Has it been decades? Well, funny you should say this. The last two times I've bowled at Mel's, I've shot 608 and 611. So it's coming. I've got quite a few bad sets in league this year. But I haven't had it under 600. No. I have, but I don't remember when it was. All right. So the part of the reason why I did this video, other than love chatting about balls, is I changed my thumb pitch a little bit, and I'm not possibly suggesting that I needed to drill an entire new arsenal because I just changed my thumb pitch. I changed a 16th. So I went from a 16th reverse to 0. So I'm just going to drill through them. And then just, if I need to plug a little bit at the bottom, I will do. But that's such a small change that I don't need to. But we're going to start as if we were starting from scratch. Just because it's good fun to chat about. And I want to explain to you how it's really overrated to have tournament balls and league balls. I think that all of them work on everything. You've just got to have all of your bases covered. So I am going to try and do Why do you think a 16th is significant? Probably because my swing is a little steep right now, and I'm not bowling as much, and to rather than fix the total root cause, I am going to try and just change it that little bit. When I did change it that little bit, because I drilled a couple of new balls last week, doing some videos for the power edge stuff. I just felt like it stayed on my thumb just a little bit longer, and I wasn't really looking for like, a huge, a huge change. I just wanted something that made it just a little bit better. So that's why it was just my swing is probably just a little bit too steep at the minute, and I've been noticing that I've just been losing it a little bit at the bottom. I could, but I use molds, so it's like it's a bit of a pain in the ass. I don't really want to drill a new I don't really want to drill a new thumb, so that's kind of why. In this case they would be. I'm not 100% sure on the regionals, but on the national tour you can have plug-in, but it's got to be within 1/4 of an inch, so basically just a fit change. Are you bowling any tournaments the next few weeks? Yes. I think I'm going to be going to Houston next weekend, and then we've got the big Plano 4-member tournament. You bowl with a 60, a 50, a lady, and then me. So yeah, a 16th is still. I mean, for me, it's quite a small change. So, so Dan tells me that there's no plugged rule for the regionals and PPA 50. So there you go. Yeah. For me, the UFO alert is cleaner and more angular. The attention star is going to be earlier. Yeah, I haven't bowled with both of them at the same time, but like my eye would tell me that the attention star's stronger. Hey, Cully. No, I'm going to Texas, Georgia. So, not really too worried about that. All right, Roger. 2LS layout. We've got Rubicon, Reality Check, Iron Pro, Idle, IQ Emerald, Pitch Black, Spare Ball. Am I missing anything? No, not really. I mean, I think you could consider having a stronger ball above, say, because I imagine in that arsenal that your idle is probably the strongest. So if you've got enough speed, the main thing I would think you were missing out on was something a little stronger. But overall, yeah, I mean, you've got a couple of balls there that I think are quite similar overall. In that, I'm not saying they're necessarily reaction wise, but like the Rubicon, the Reality Check, and the Ion Pro, like they hook about the same amount, I think, for most people. Like maybe differently, but the same overall amount. So that would be about the only thing. But anyway, Eli says, do you think the new Phaze AI is too similar to the Optimum, Idle, Pearl, or the Journey? Well, I don't think it really matters if it's too similar to the Journey, which I don't necessarily think it is, because the Journey's been discontinued. I think it's much stronger for me than the Optimum Idle. I think it hooks more and it hooks earlier. Colin, how do you approach league patterns you feel you need to be mismatched? I literally average more OC than I do on my Tuesday night. They put Kegel Easy Street out for us. You're joining Rob Law there. I always laugh that Rob Law's the only man in America who averages more on the nationals than he does on the house shot. So for me, it's all about trying to when I feel like it's mismatched, I try to just think outside the box ball wise. So I'm gonna have to do that at Mel's because me and Nathan are struggling a bit. So you just got to think about which area of the lane people are bowling, and then how best you can match up to that area of the lane with a ball, because sometimes, especially on the house shot, it's kind of difficult. It's kind of difficult to change everything that you do roll wise to match up to it, because sometimes your rev rate's too high or too low or whatever. So then I think balls are much easier change. Real quick shout out, Fire Lake Bowling Center, first weekend of January is holding the annual Snowman Doubles. If you want to play, it's in Shawnee, Oklahoma. Hit up Jessica Rojas. She might be Jessica Hatt now, but search for Snowman Doubles on Facebook. If you need any help and you want to get entered, just send me a message and I'll get you hooked up. So really good tournament, lots of fun. So check that one out. All right, let's do this with a banner. Create a banner. So first ball I'm going to start with to create my arsenal is the absolute power. So we're going to have the absolute power. Oh God. Wow. Nice efforts too. Absolute power is going to be the benchmark ball. And then from that, we're going to need, so the ball up from the absolute power for me right now is the Ion Max. Okay. So we've got those two. God, I'm so bad at this. This is actually one of those things that Barnes does better than I do. So we've got the Ion Max. Oh my God, I'm so bad. The Ion Max and the absolute power. They would be the first two balls that I would start with right now. And then from there, I've got to figure out what I'm going to go to below the absolute power. Right. Now for me, that is going to be, so I will change the max, and that's going to be DNA Coil. So we've got those. So we've got these three now. So I feel like right now I've got a ball. I've got my benchmark ball, which is the absolute power. I've got the DNA Coil, which is going to be the ball off it underneath. And I've got the Ion Max, often referred to on this channel as the Ion Pro Max. Yeah. Yes, Adam, they do hand oil the lanes. I feel like Jesse started another YouTube channel and Simo's the face of it. I don't really think Simo started a YouTube channel, but cool. You know, more good content out there, the better. Simo is obviously right now the best two-hander in the world. So the information that you can provide to people, how much Simo wants to really commit to it time-wise will be interesting. But we'll see. I mean, I think it'll be something that will be popular for sure. I mean, his first videos, I think it's done 30,000 views already. So, anyway, so I've got the ball above it, I've got the ball below it, I've got my benchmark. So that's like the meat and potatoes, as I would like to call it, of your arsenal. So now we can start to decide, well, what are we going to use as I think we need a symmetrical kind of benchmark ball, because the absolute power is the asymmetrical ball, and sometimes you're going to need a symmetrical ball. So for me, with the storm balls, I currently this was always the what's it called, phase 2, but right now I'm actually leaning a little bit more to Summit Ascent. So that's going to be so it's almost like if I'm using the absolute power, I'm going to go down to the DNA Coil because that's the one that's the logical change. Summit Ascent is more across. It's going to be a little bit less overall hook, but a similar style motion. So that's That's as kind of filling out the top sort of, yeah, the top part of the bag. Yeah, no, not right now. Sorry. I didn't really plan this as well as I could have done. Papa Maldonado says, what's the best ball for house shot on wood lanes? I mean, this really depends. I think IQ Tour, Ion Pro, they both might be pretty good options. I like on wood lanes, I like something that's a little smoother because I feel like it doesn't. I feel like on wood lanes, because the ball's hooked so early, if you have something that's like skids more, it just hits the friction harder and then stands up. And I find them harder to use. So for me on wood lanes, I prefer a kind of a smoother motion. Yeah. Whereas some people would suggest that you need the ball that skids the most. I don't think that. I think you need the ball that continues the most. So for me, that right now is the IQ Tour and the Ion Pro would be the two. All right, Rivs. It says, how do you differentiate between a pearl ball that's polished in your bag versus a sanded polish, and where's it fit? So you mean kind of like a dull ball that's been polished, I think. Right. Or a solid ball, so to speak, that's been polished. For me, the pearl and solid thing's a little overplayed, but in general, the industry wisdom is that the pearl ball in general is a little more angular and a little more quicker response. So the way I see it is I do this quite a lot where I polish a dull, stronger ball. So if we were to take something like, I mean, somebody's talking about the Sublime Focus here, so that's a good one. If we take the Sublime Focus, I felt like what I end up doing is I make the reaction a little further down the lane, like I delay the hook, so to speak. But I see it as once I polish those dull balls, they end up being a little bit more continuous because they're not whatever additives put in them to make them like change direction as quickly isn't in there. And some of that might be mental, but I just see it as once I take that solid ball that's dull and I add polish to it, I see a ball that is cleaner than when it was dull, obviously. But I see a much more rounded motion than if I have like the pearl version of that ball. I feel like it's more continuous and I think it's a little more versatile for me. The pearl ball tends to be much more hit and miss in my mind. It's a little bit more, the pearl ball is a little bit more responsive to dry or the wet. But that's in real layman's terms. Like I say, for me, I kind of like taking polish to the solid balls. I always have done. I actually won my first title using a shiny Victory Road Solid. Not many people use that ball, and that ball was fantastic for me when it was shiny. So yeah, like I say, ball reaction is always in the eye of the beholder. For me, the Victory Road Pearl was one of the most popular balls for everybody else. For me, it was a little bit too responsive. So I ended up using that Victory Road Solid shiny, and I didn't create the same reaction, but I had like a ball that hooked about the same amount. It just was a little bit earlier and more rounded. So that's how I see it. I hope that makes sense. If you have any follow-up questions, let me know, but I hope that makes sense. What's your take on Summit Ascent and Sublime Focus as far as shape-wise, since they're both benchmark balls? Yeah, benchmark. We've been through this 100 times, haven't we? Benchmark is whichever ball allows you to see your arsenal the best. So for me, the benchmark ball is the absolute power. I think that allows me to get into my other balls knowing what they're going to do by just seeing that ball go down the lane. So Summit Ascent and Sublime Focus, well, to me, those balls are actually quite different. Sublime Focus is much more cover strong, whereas I think the Summit Ascent has a stronger core. So I see the Summit Ascent as being cleaner than Sublime Focus and a little bit less overall hook. Definitely more motion down the lane with that R2S cover on it. Sublime Focus, I see as being a little stronger than a Phaze 2. Kind of that same sort of thing where it digs into the front part of the lane. But I think that it has a little bit more pop overall down the lane. I think Sublime Focus is much more of a Phaze 2 replacement than the Summit Ascent if you want the same motion. Now, I've actually used the Summit Ascent to a large extent to replace my Phaze 2s because I felt like the Phaze 2s were too strong a lot of the time. And if I wanted a ball stronger than where the Summit Ascent is, I'd probably just use Absolute Power or Ion Max. So for me anyway, Sublime Focus, whereas it is a useful piece in my arsenal, I tend to go asymmetrical when I want something that's strong, but I have seen people do quite well with their ball. It just maybe it isn't the ball for me, although I have done okay with it when I've used it. There's a lot of prefaces there. Well, that's good to hear, Steph. I'm glad that's going well for you. Adam says, have you ever wanted to do a small 3-part series of your favorite solids, pearls, and hybrids beef stew? Not really, Adam. No. I mean, I could, I guess. What's your thoughts on the XL? Overall, I think the cover's quite similar to the Absolute Power. I just feel like the XL's a little earlier and a little smoother. I've used it a little bit more on the house shot than the Absolute Power. I think it looks a little better than the house shot than the Absolute Power does, because I think the fact that it gets a little more forward, I think controls the dry a little bit better. But overall, if I was going to league, I'd probably take the XL. I mean, if I'm going to tournaments, I'm definitely taking both, but Absolute Power is probably the one that I'm going to see. I'm going to see more use out of. Yeah, I'm a Liverpool guy. What do you think of the Phaze AI? I think it's really strong. For me, it transitions a little bit too fast, but I've seen it in the demos and I've seen Chris using it and I've seen Prather using it and they've all really liked it. They're able to get it to continue a little bit more than I am. Like I say, for me, the really, really strong symmetrical balls end up being a bit of a waste. For me, with the way I see them, I tend to use asymmetrical in that spot. So I'm going to play around a little bit. I've got another one of them to drill with layouts to see, because I think it could be a really useful motion for me. And I think going forward, I need to get more of those balls in my arsenal. I'm just struggling a little bit to see the best way to use them because they're so strong. And I prefer to use the slightly weaker cover with the stronger core. So, like I say, Chris and Ryan both really like it. I'm like 50-50 on it right now. Yeah, I think some of it as well is because it's got that black and white. It really looks like it hooks early as well. You mentioned the IQ. Which one you like? 78. Oh no, sorry, Papa. I meant the original IQ Tour, the blue one. Yeah, the IQ 78's a urethane. And the ruby for me is the exact opposite of what I want. The ruby is a pearl ball. It's super responsive. I think that's the last thing that you actually want on a wood lane. I think you want something that's a little. You want it to be clean but not really responsive, and that's where I see like R2S cover, and a solid ball being the option. So IQ Tour I think is a really good option for that. Okay. Let's move along a little bit on this Arsenal. We'll try and, because I think I'm going to end up getting to 12 balls, and then once I've got the 12, we'll eliminate. I'll sort of pare down so we can see where we'd be at for league. Let me just edit this banner a little bit because there's a couple of obvious ones that I need to put in here. So obviously we're going to have a pitch black and a plastic ball, and that might be the Striking Against Breast Cancer or Platinum Ford. So I've added these back in because they would obviously be in my arsenal. Now, pitch black would be interchangeable with the IQ 78 for PBA tournaments, but for regular tournaments, I'm still a pitch black guy. I like the pitch black, I like kind of the motion it makes. Did you ever drill another Optimum idle stronger? I did drill a second one, but I kind of did a bit of a funky layout on it, and it didn't really roll very well. So I kind of didn't really hold that against it. I just got a bit of a strange spec on one, so I decided to try and play with it a little bit, and it didn't work out. It was probably more on me than it was the ball. But yeah, again, I think I'm going to play around more with the Phaze AI than that Optimum idle. Seems like I've heard more positive feedback from players on the Phaze AI than I did on the idle Pearl. What do you think for solid asim for two-handers? Have original DNA, try the absolute power in an XL, neither left that must have feeling. Oh, okay. Well, why did you not like the absolute power in the XL? Was it that they weren't strong enough? Because I mean, they've both got fairly similar covers, I think. So if you wanted something different, you could go with the Ion Max. That's obviously going to be a lot stronger. So maybe that's the answer. Scott. So you think the AI is stronger and angular than the dark code? I don't think it's angular. I don't think it's more angular, but it's definitely stronger. The dark code is way cleaner. Dark code is like a slight step down from virtual energy blackout in my mind. So if you wanted something that's similar to the dark code but just a little stronger, I think virtual energy blackout. And remember, hashtag all black balls look the same. Yeah, that was from a long time ago. So check out the Cameron Crowe episode. Chris says Ion Pro Max, Reality Strike, Phaze AI, Smooth Edge. Flu. Yeah. Yeah. My man Chris. The Beef and Barnzy show where everything gets remarketed. Dayton, thank you. I'm a left-hander, but curious to see what you have seen or talked to left-handers on tour. What type of bowling balls and surface do they like on medium-long patterns at tournaments? You're probably not going to like this answer, but in general, the lefties on the PBA tour only throw either the red ball, the IQ 78, or the black hammer. They very rarely throw reactive balls. When they do, I think they tend to use some of the stronger duller A symbols because they need something that's definitely going to pick up. Jesper kind of has some of those shiny because his rev rate's so high. He needs to just like tame the hook down a little bit. So I've seen Jesper using, you know, realities. The lock was one that he liked a lot. I'm imagining that he's used this Ion Pro Max, the Ion Max a little bit. But in general, I don't think that the lefties, most of the lefties on tour who are successful are two-handed. So it's kind of hard to relate them to like a regular person or a regular bowler, I should say. Not really a regular person, but a regular bowler. So that's a little difficult for me, but in general, I think lefties like smoother balls because they want to play. They generally have to play straighter angles. Yeah. If you have any other questions, let me know. But like in general, lefties right now who are being successful are mainly focusing on using urethane. Audio experience switch one-handed to two-handed. Okay, probably a good choice. Plugged, redrilled, IQ Tour, Zen, Parallax Effect. Ugh. Added Phase 2, Tropical Surge, Attention Start, missing anything, swap anything out. It really depends on your speed. When you changed over, do you end up with way more revs and like still slow speed, or did you end up with way more revs, way more speed? Like, did you kind of like when you made the change? Did you end up when you made the change? When you made the change over, did you end up like kind of matching up, or do you think that you're like way too many revs? Because obviously, if you've got a lot of speed, I think looking at that, you're missing a big ball, a harsh reality, an Ion Max, or even absolute power. I think Phase 2 is a pretty good starter. Did you find that the Phase 2 is not enough at any point? Yeah. So just come back in the comments, let me know, and then we can delve a bit more deeply into the conversation. Same with you, Dayton. If you have any other like kind of feedback from that, let me know. We can continue the debate. What was your thoughts on the idle Helios? Ooh. That was not one of my favorites. I'll be honest, it wasn't one of my favorites. The balls are hooking early. Okay. Well, that makes sense then. So then I think that you have a fairly good mix. One ball that I think you could consider adding that I like anyway is the Ion Pro, not the Pro Max or not the Max, just the Ion Pro. I think that will be a kind of a nice step up and in between the IQ Tour and the Phase 2. If you feel like you have a gap there, I think that would fit that quite nicely. Probably drill it a little stronger than you think, though. Yeah. Brent, have you not been paying attention? What do I think of the DNA Coil? I think the DNA Coil is one of the greatest balls ever made. It's fucking amazing. I absolutely love the DNA Coil. Hashtag check out my scores at Nationals. All right. Follow up on the left-handers. Can you use urethane at League, or is that bad? I mean, you can use urethane at League. Like, and especially if you don't bowl with any other lefties. I mean, I think, yeah, get after it. But yes, it can be bad. Yeah. I mean, lefties seem to be using urethane on everything, so who knows? David, if she has, how does Tina have her Phase? Tina doesn't have the Phaze AI. I'm not sure whether she's going to get one or not. I just drilled her a harsh reality pearl because she tried that in the demo and she liked that. And I think we're going to get an Ion Max because the reality was one of her favorite balls. Cliff Barnes says, how about the DNA Coil Max Pro? How about the Hustler? Seen a few of those around. Yeah, I mean, there is always a good chance. It's not got AI on it, so it is sort of the older technology. Oh, thanks, Cliff. I just love being a bitch. It's the best. It is the best. Oh, let me add a couple of balls to this. Let me add a couple of balls to this list. Banners. All right. So let's edit this. I like the Ion Pro. Let me just have a quick flick. I've actually really started to like the virtual energy blackout now that I got to resurface it and add power edge to it. And for me, made it a totally different ball. Because of where that blackout is in my arsenal, I want it to be really far left and kind of shaping it a lot. And I felt like when I did that, I needed to use lower speed. And when that happened, I felt like it tended to get forward because it was so quick off the spot. And with it being an asymmetrical core. But since I've added the power edge, seems like the magic sauce for me. I feel like it's kind of made the reaction, the hook window longer and more responsive. So that's worked out really nicely for me. I really like what I've seen out of that. Let me have a look here. Rotor grip. What have we got on the rotor grip side? Maybe a hustle. Global. Okay. So I've added so now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So now we've got all of those balls. This is where, for me, I feel like this is a solid base for me. Maybe I'm missing something below the Ion Pro. Something that could be a hustle. It could be a high road pearl. It could be I'm just, because I haven't been bowling tournaments as much, it could be a high road also. I've only got samples of it so far. When I tried to order it through the staff portal or whatever, it wasn't available at that moment. So think it's coming in the next few weeks. Mike says, have you ever heard of controlled motion drilling? This sounds like a Mo Pinel thing, and I haven't. That's a possibility. The problem is the IQ balls are quite low RG, and although it's got that R2S Pearl cover stock on it, I just feel like it just feels like it doesn't necessarily get through the front part of the lane as well as I'd like it to, with it being a little low RG. So yeah, that's kind of where it is. I thought this was going to be easier to just bullshit and talk about as I was going. So it's not, because there are a few balls that I use that aren't necessarily available right now to that. Like Absolute, for example. So I am going to add Vibo in here. And then I'm going to add Hustle. RIP. And then up at the top, I am going to actually add in Excel. And that's kind of how So now we've got Ion Max, Excel, Absolute Power, DNA Coil, Summit Ascent, Ion Pro, Vibo, Hustle Rip, Pitch Black, and the Plastic. As you can see, for me, I don't really struggle with getting the ball down the lane very much. So my arsenal tends to complement the things that my skill set does. And I think that's how it should be for everybody. So if you're super speed dominant, you probably don't need a hustle. Like if you throw it like really slow and your rev rate's really high, you probably don't need like Ion Max in your bag. You certainly don't need 2 balls up in that range. So that's where you're you've got to be really careful. Lightning Blackout, for me, I prefer the hustles. I think that for me anyway, the Lightning Blackout, the cover makes it hook a little earlier than it makes sense for the weight block to hook in my arsenal. So when I want to use it, I'd rather use the hustle because I know that's going to get through the front part of the lane. But if I use the Lightning Blackout, I feel like when I use it, that I have to throw it harder than I really want to get it through the front part of the lane. And then when it gets to the back part of the lane, it's a little bit too responsive. Sorry. Once it gets to the back part of the lane, because it burnt up a little bit, it either doesn't come round or I throw it harder to get it through the front part of the lane and then it kind of misses the spot. It also looks way better for me going straighter. So for Tina, she really likes it. It works really well for her. It's a step above the hustle. For me, it's just got such a short window that I can use it. Now, I do have one still here, and I think that it might make sense for that to be another ball that I try Power Edge on, because I think that might make it a little less responsive to the dry. So if I do that, I might be able to get it through the front a little better, because it'll pick up and be more rounded. So that talking about it on the show here has worked out well for me, because that might be one that I just go and put on the spinner this afternoon, have a little play with. What is like the IQ Ruby but stronger? Good question. Summit Peak, I think. Summit Peak is kind of like the IQ Ruby in a way, similar, same cover, just way more flair. Can you make an arsenal for speed dominant then rev dominant? Yeah, we could do. We don't have that much time left today, but like it like to me, speed dominant players, you're probably going to want to have 2 balls in all the big spots. So like you could do like Ion Max and Harsh Reality or Harsh Reality Pearl, like 2 pretty strong balls. Then the ball below that, like for me, I would do the XL rather than the Absolute Power, just because I think the XL is stronger. I'd then look at like, as opposed to Summit Ascent, I would look at like Phase 2 or Sublime Focus. So get those in there. And like I think Attention Star would be another one. Another one, like if you got a hold of a gem as well, I would like the gem. So gem and Ion Max, I think would be 2 good balls off each other. I think Attention Star might also look okay. So yeah. they would be the balls that I would focus on. Like the weakest ball that I would think for somebody who's really speed dominant would be like either like Phaze. Well, maybe Phaze AI might be a little strong, but like Optimum Idle Pearl might be the weakest ball that I would go with for a speed dominant player. And then rev dominant, I think that you've got to be looking at like kind of smoother balls, like these, like, because you don't really need to see motion because you're going to create motion yourself. So I think that I think a couple of the hustles maybe would be pretty good. The X-ray might be a good option. I think IQ Tour is another good option for slower speed players. I think Ion Pro would be another solid choice. Just quickly, I mean, Exponent Pearl might be the one that you use to really go around the lane. So that's some of the things. And then like your strongest ball might be absolute power. So yeah. I guess. Can you bring Grandpa Raymond on and give us insights? Oh dear. Please don't. Oh, leave JR alone. All right. What is your finishing process for Power Edge? You're talking about turning the ball way down to like 1,000 or like the old great. Like the problem is you're never going to get it the same. So for me, I have a 2-speed spinner, so I can get it to go fairly quickly. Not like the factory, but I can get it to go fairly quickly, and I can actually get the ball to get so hot that you can't touch it afterwards. You know, like when you take the rag off, you can't, like, it's hot to the touch. So for me, with the Power Edge balls so far, I've been hitting the ball with either a Burgundy Scotch Brite or 500 as the coat underneath, and I haven't been taking it up from there. I've just been using the Power Edge, and if I still have lines left in it underneath the polish, I just put the back on the spinner for a little longer. And I think from what I've seen anyway, the longer and longer that I use that polish, the smooth edge, it actually does take the lines out of it. So I haven't really seen another polish do that before. Like, I feel like once the lines are there and you put the polish on, it doesn't continue to take the ball up. Whereas I feel like this Power Edge is sort of like compound polish combined type of thing. And it seems like it continues to take the lines out of it if you just keep going. So an interesting product. Don't necessarily know how it works. I think Chris has decided to go on a deep dive into that. So I'm thinking that that he will have more info. If you go back to the staff show last week, Zach kind of spoke about it a little bit about the particles breaking up and yada 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 yada. So if you want to hear about that, try that show. It's towards the end of the show. Iron Max polished is still a lot of ball. It is. I do like the motion out of it though. Comparison between Optimum Pearl and Exponent Pearl. For me, Optimum Pearl is earlier. The Exponent it's pretty clean, but it comes off the spot so hard. The Exponent Pearl is one of the most responsive balls I've ever seen. I know that seems like hyperbole, but oh my god, that thing is sideways. Most of the time when I tried to use it this year, I used it on longer patterns and I used it with surface because it was so responsive. Hitting the surface with it really helped. And yeah, it made the most sense for me on longer patterns. Stu, what's your opinion on the road? The road is not a useful ball for me. I think that's part of the reason why you don't hear people talking about it. For my game, it is too strong in the front and too weak in the back. Like the cover is too early for as higher RG as that is. And then when it's shiny, it kind of doesn't really, it just ends up in no man's land for me. it didn't help that like it's not really a ball that makes much sense on tour because we have so much oil down the lane. So it wasn't really a ball that got used very much. About the only person I saw use that ball fairly consistently was Rash. Um, but yeah, that it just wasn't a ball that was it didn't fit my eye or what I wanted to see. Um, yeah, not at all. How would you separate Phase AI and Attention Star? For me, the AI is earlier. Um, the Attention Star is cleaner, but it has kind of the asymmetrical motion. So, like, say if they're both drilled the same, I feel like the Phase AI is going to be earlier and a bit stronger overall. Right. So I said I would pare this arsenal down a little bit for league. Here's a few things you have to think about when you go to bowl league. Like, what's the best way to bowl in that center? Is it to be straighter? Is that the key? Or is it to hook it? And once you've sort of solved that, then you can kind of look at the balls. Like for me, if I need to go a little straighter and I don't really want the ball to be like hooking a lot down the lane, the XL is much better than the absolute power for me. So there's like one, I wouldn't take both the XL and the absolute power. They're way too close. So that's that one out. And then like for me, symmetrical balls don't work as well on house shots as asymmetrical balls because they just don't dig into the oil when I miss left. So that's another thing. You've got to decide, are you a guy who likes to play the friction? Are you a guy who really kind of is your miss more to the right or is your miss more to the left? And then once you've made those decisions, you can kind of focus in on which balls you want. Like for me, hustle rip, probably never going to be a league ball. We have plenty of oil on the lane. I feel like when you take weaker balls to league and there's a decent amount of oil in the middle, it just exasperates the wet dry. So when it hits the wet is super, super wet. And when it gets to the dry, all that's happened is it's got all of its energy because it doesn't really burn up. And then it hits the dry and it's like sideways. So that's a couple of balls that I wouldn't really necessarily use. And then you go from there. I mean, like if you're bowling on a place that burns up a lot, you know, like you're bowling on a team who's got a lot of rev rate, then something like the Vibo would be ideal for the end because you can kind of get left, really have a big angle. You've got the asymmetry to help you in the when you miss in the oil, but you got something that'll get through the front and allow you to really open the lane up. So I don't look at league. I look at league as just a different pattern. A lot of other people don't want to like kind of acknowledge league. I don't really see the point in that. So that's kind of how I see it anyway. Scott, been using Summit, Harsh Reality Pearl, Clone, and Vibo in leagues. Any balls to fill in, add anything weaker? Got 300 with the Clone so far. Nice. Nice. I mean, it seems like you like those kind of cleaner ASIMs. Maybe consider an Attention Star. I think that would probably fit between the Harsh Reality Pearl and the Clone, based on what you've kind of liked. I think that might be a good option. If you wanted to add something weaker, I mean, yeah, I mean below the Vibo in league, I don't know necessarily unless you've got really slow speed that you really need something below the Vibo. But if you did and you wanted to add something, I think I mean, depending on what angles you play, Lightning Blackout might be okay. Wouldn't necessarily be the one that I would use, but I think if you're using straighter angles, which based on your arsenal, I kind of guess you probably do, I think that might be a decent option below the Vibo. I'm not rev dominant, but I find myself using things like Iron Pro and Hustle because our fronts hook like crazy. Okay. I mean, for me, that sounds like you are doing the right thing because you're getting balls that are a little smoother, especially if this is like a Hustle X-ray or something like that, or an M&M. I know that sounds weird, but the M&M is actually a little smoother. So if you're using that, that even though it might hook a little earlier, it's just a little less responsive to the dry. So you it feels like it goes longer, even though it necessarily doesn't have to. Um, if you had time to practice, I would try and work on like you opening my hips up and trying to use a little bit more angle through the front. Um, but yeah, I mean that makes a lot of sense what you're saying. What do I think about original High Road house shot replacement for Hype Solid? I wouldn't think that the High Road would be a pretty good would be a good replacement for a Hype Solid. For me, if I was looking for a Hype Solid replacement, if I wanted something that was like on the weaker side to replace the Hype Solid, I'd go with a Hustle X-Ray. If I wanted something a little stronger, because obviously it's really difficult to get a dead light for light replacement. But if I wanted something a little stronger, um, consider Ion Pro now. Um, did you ever throw the Absolute Pearl overseas? No. DNA cover, Absolute Coil seems like that would have been just like for you. Just got it. Need to drill it. Yeah, that sounds like heaven for me. That Absolute Core is one of my favorites, and the DNA coil cover seems to be awesome. So, I didn't really notice that, but like I said, I didn't really use it that much. So, Phase 2 compared to Phase AI. Phase AI is definitely cleaner because it's got the polish on it. I think if they were both the same surface, I think that the Phase 2 might actually end up being, well, it would look like it's cleaner because it'd be more rounded. The Phase AI stands up really hard for me. So if you can get it far enough down the lane, I can see how people would see that as being super angular. For me, it's angular, but it's quite early. So that translates into it getting like transitioning fast and being a bit forward. I feel like for me anyway, when I'm using the Phase AI, I need a little bit more axis rotation. I think that allows it to continue a little bit better. Uh, yeah, when I don't have the axis rotation, I feel like it gets quite forward down the lane. Um, but yeah, Phase 2 out of the box with both out the box. Phase 2 is going to be probably 2 or 3 stronger, but mainly in the front part of the lane. You're going to see way more motion out of the AI down the lane. Yes, I saw the harsh reality pill as being very responsive. I agree. It's also quite strong. So its responsiveness for me was a little bit too soon. Um, yeah, yeah, that's without the balance holes and stuff. That's a tough one. But yes, I do see that as being quite a high response ball. Any miss left in league, risk of a split. Well, I'm assuming if you're missing left, you're probably leaving the 210 based on the balls you've got. I think you should consider yeah, you wrote the same thing underneath. Okay. I think you should consider experimenting with a much stronger ball. And then kind of embracing the left and moving a little bit further left into it. So, based on what you've got here, like an absolute power might be a good option, or XL, or if you want to go the whole way, Ion Max, maybe with polish. Like for me, they're all symmetrical balls. Maybe just experiment with an asymmetrical ball. Um, I find for me when I use symmetrical balls and I miss left, I two pin a lot too. Pin in ring finger supernova. What does that do to the flare potential? It totally depends on what your axis is. Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's gonna it the odds are it's gonna be pretty strong. So it's gonna flare a lot. In general for most people, but like how it flares. Like there's just so many different things based because it's based on your axis point. Ion Max, DNA, Coil, Zigzag. I don't know. I don't really know the Zigzag Solid very well. Is that the new one that just come out? All Road. What are your thoughts? I mean, I would have thought you could have done with something a bit more angular in there. Something like a virtual energy blackout might be an option. Just something with a bit more pop down the lane. You got the DNA coil, but maybe like a weaker ball, like where you have your all road, because the all road is pretty smooth. So like, even a regular high road could be an option down there. Is the Attention Star OG Exponent Lightning Blackout a good league bag? It can be, yes, for sure. Feel like you've got a couple of different shapes. Also have the Ion Max. Well, you could, if you wanted to get the Ion Max in play a little bit more, you could put a bit of polish on it. That'd give you something still a little stronger than the Attention Star, but maybe a little bit more usable in league. Okay, cool. You like using the 3-ball. Like I always end up taking 6 balls to league because I kind of, it always seems to be different every time. So I tend to have a couple of new ones that I don't really know what they do, and then go from there. Zigzag is for heavy oil. Yeah. I haven't really seen it go down the lane yet, so I don't know. Yeah, it can be for sure. Just be a little bit careful with the finishes. So if you maybe had the XL with kind of a fresher surface, and then you had the scent a little bit lane shined, that would probably be a good 1-2. So yeah. All right, I'm gonna wrap it up, I think. Nice. Very nice. Congratulations. Is Zigzag a ball up from Ion Pro or Max? I would think it would be stronger than the Ion Pro. I can't imagine it's going to be stronger than the Ion Max. I find that hard to believe. Mario, XL, Attention Star, Optimum Idol, Phaze AI. Yeah, pretty good selection. For me, the Phaze AI would be closest to the Attention Star than the Optimum Idol, but yeah, not a bad selection there. I think you got most of the bases covered. Um, so, all right, guys. Well, thanks for joining me. Thanks for listening to me bullshit on for an hour. Appreciate you all. It's getting towards gift giving season and hoodie wearing season. We have hoodies. Check out beefandbarnzy.com. I may even reach out to Coolwick and see if we can add some new stuff coming in the next few weeks. It's yeah, it's been it's been a minute for them up there. They are just north of Tampa. So if you have any orders that haven't gone out, please bear with them as they try to catch up. It isn't always necessarily their fault either. I know that Kegel had some issues getting some stuff out to some of the bowling centers, not because they did anything wrong, just because FedEx and UPS and whatever just weren't really picking up. So, all right. Thank you. Please support the sponsors that support us. Storm, Rotogrip, 900 Global, Coolwick, Bowlers Mart, Turbo, Firelight Bowling Center, Platinum Ford, and Lightning Strikes. Lightning Strikes got its power back yesterday, so that was awesome. Have a nice weekend and hook 'em horns.